Does the idea of a commission portrait make you nervous? I still get nervous, and I've been doing commission portraits for a while now. During this 3-part video series, I'm going to bring you along for the entire process, from the initial phone call with the client to the final unveiling of the portrait. For part 1, I will start with the phone call from the client through the photo shoot and editing process to the final reference photo getting approved by the client. In part 2, I will show you how I paint the underpainting and discuss what client communications are necessary. And in part 3, I show you how I apply color over my underpainting, varnish, and unveil the final portrait to the client. All right, let's do it. During the initial call with the client, listen to exactly what it is that the client is looking for. How many subjects will be in the portrait? What style of portrait do they want? Is it classical, modern, edgy, maybe fantasy? You may need to send the client some examples to choose from. Could be your own work or examples from other artists. I even keep a file in my computer ready to share. This will help you pinpoint if you are the correct artist for the job. If what the client is looking for, it is not something you do, it is best to refer them to another artist if you know of one. If not, politely state that this is not something that you do. Be honest with yourself and the client. You do not want to set yourself up for a bad experience. Trust me. So let's say you are exactly the correct artist. Then see if they know exactly what size portrait they want and ask if they know where they'll be hanging it. Sometimes it's good to understand the color scheme in the room where the painting's going to hang. Sometimes I will incorporate those colors into the portrait, but not always. Also, ask if there is a specific end date for the portrait. Sometimes there is, but usually there's not. Hopefully there's not, and you can take as much time as you need to. I have my portrait process in detail on my website, so often I will send the client there so that they can fully understand what to expect, but I will also tell them during the phone call what to expect. Another reason why I like to send the client to my website is there are prices on there for kind of generalizing the portrait process, like head and shoulders at this size will be this price, 3/4 body at this size will be this price, additional subjects add this, elaborate backgrounds could be this. So right away, if the client sees that, they understand kind of where my pricing is. I don't like to give prices on that initial phone call. What I do is I say, okay, I have all the information and I can write up a quote for you and I will email it over, and just email me back with any questions, and just if you're happy with the pricing and everything that's stated there, go ahead and just say that it's approved and we can move forward. Once I know what is expected of me, such as the number of subjects, approximate size of the portrait, a possible color scheme, and specific details like what is going to be in the background, I'll ask my subjects what will they be wearing. Maybe it'll be a costume, like in today's example, they are dressed in a pirate style attire, which is my favorite when they're in costume. Now that I know what to expect, it's time to discuss the photo shoot. Does the client want to do it at my studio, or do they prefer I come to them? What type of setting and background does the client want? Maybe the photo shoot will take place outdoors. Set the date, time, and place for the photo shoot and allow for about 1 hour's time, and recommend that the client be dressed and ready before you get there. Okay, now you have a date. You need to be prepared. You want to make a plan. The first thing I like to do is start kind of brainstorming and visualizing with the information that the client has given me. Where can I go with this portrait? And I have, over the years, collected many different reference photos and compiled them into physical, actual notebooks. But I also keep vision boards and idea folders on my computer as well. Whichever works for you. Like me, I have both. I like that I have the information on the computer, so I can often pinpoint what kind of goes in the direction that the client was thinking, and then I can email or send them a link to that folder and say, here's some great ideas. Maybe pick 3 that you are excited about, that speak to you, and that might also help them start to visualize the portrait the same way that I'm visualizing the portrait. That can be difficult sometimes. Clients often think they know what they want, but when it comes down to it, they don't really have the vision. So if you can help them to start to visualize the end result and do it in a direction that skews towards you as the artist and how you're going to paint the painting, it can be beneficial for both. It'll just help eliminate surprises at the end. The photo shoot day has arrived. You have a plan, you're ready. Just make sure you go with your camera and your lights. So the day of the photo shoot, I'm always a little nervous, but having a plan and being prepared will help you lessen your nerves. You can find easy to use boilerplate contracts online. Remove anything that doesn't apply. I highly recommend that you use some kind of contract. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be long. I like to keep them to one page. Just let the client read over it. They sign it, I sign it, and we're good to go. If you want to take it one step further, you could have them notarized. The important thing is you have a contract. It's really more for the fact that the client is going to see in the contract exactly what to expect, and also it helps you get paid. It lets them see, okay, I want a 50% deposit today. It's non-refundable. Even if you get to the end of the portrait and the client is displeased, and God forbid that they don't pay you the final payment, they can't take away the deposit. They can't. You will have made at least something for your effort to have done the underpainting, to have done the photo shoot, to have taken the time to plan for the portrait. You haven't wasted all that time. So please, please make sure you collect a 50% non-refundable deposit on the day of the photo shoot or sooner. Okay, I'm going to look for an area in the home with a solid background. If I can find one, that's where I'll do the photo shoot. I've got the light set up, and I've set the light to the same side of my subjects that the main windows are on as well. Now, I like to make sure that they're comfortable. I'm directing them. I'm giving them words of encouragement. They know what I expect, but it has to be fun. So make sure that you don't just shoot in one position. You're constantly moving the subjects around, different head tilts, different hand placement, standing, sitting. Just come up with as many different subject positions, poses that you can. Maybe make a list before you arrive. Check that your pictures are not blurry often. Pay attention to details. Make sure that the hair is in place. Remember, the clients are not often in front of the camera. You want to make them feel at ease, and by giving them really constant words of encouragement, you're going to get better photos. You're going to see it come through on their face, that they're comfortable and having fun. For instance, here I had my male subject kneeling down, and it is a hard tile floor. So we had to get a folded up blanket to put under his knee so that he could withstand being in that position for the length of time that I needed him there. Maybe the client has more than one outfit they want to shoot. That's fine. We didn't change costumes during this photo shoot, but there's been times where the client I've been working with wasn't sure what outfit they wanted, so we had a couple different costume changes along the way. Here we had different props and accessories. So at one point I had hat on the female subject, I had the hat off the female subjects. Then you saw here the swords were up, swords were down. We just tried all kinds of different things with those props. Don't forget to manage the direction of the gaze. You'll want to try different ones, and also try different perspectives with your camera. Be down low, be up high, be from the side, maybe stand on a ladder. All those things will lend to an awesome photo portrait reference for you to paint from. So when I got the images loaded into my computer, I ended up with about 51 photos that I was going through, and so these were a few of the shots that we took. You can see all the movements, little movements with the head and then different positions. Everything's just micro adjusted, except for the pose. Usually the pose is a significant change. But you can see we tried a lot of different things. So this is the actual photo that I landed on for using in my reference image. So at this point, I bring this original raw photo into Photoshop, and now the fun begins. Once I have the image into Photoshop, I remove any extraneous background or any props. If you use the photo where maybe there's a chair or a blanket or something like that that's not going to be part of the painting, then just get rid of it. Now I start fresh. So I'm going to start trying out different backgrounds to see what might work in my kind of ideal direction. So I'm applying all these different things. So thinking all that's kind of light. I want to go a bit darker with this sort of ballroom-esque setting. So I have a image that I'll show you here in a minute that I took this background from, and then I just kind of compiled areas together that would complete the room and background behind them. Just started sort of building the background. I did have a plan. I wanted this sort of greenish overcast, and then I started adding that ballroom type floor, and then we started making sure that the image looked like it belonged in that setting. Did some vignetting, so you can see here without the vignette, her legs are very bright, and that hat, all that's a little too bright for me. So here I take it all down a notch, because when I'm doing the painting, I understand that I'm going to want things to just kind of melt away as we get towards the edge of the painting. And that is where I ended up. Let me show you the original photo that I had used as sort of my inspiration. So these photos I found online, and I just keep them in my little folder file on my computer so that I have them available when I want to kind of think about what is happening. So here's another one. I liked the position of this couple, thought we'd do something similar. And this was another couple position that I really liked. I like kind of that neutral coloring too. Here was the photograph that really inspired me for the background. And this was the photo that I kind of took snippets and pieces of this background and the floor and put it around my subjects, as you saw. And I don't have to do it perfectly. First of all, I'm not a professional photographer, and I am not a professional Photoshop person. I can get around and do enough in Photoshop to help me see the vision I need for a project like this portrait, and that's all I needed to have available to me, just the basics. And so with this in mind, I kind of went for this sort of neutral color palette too. I really like the greens in here and how they play off of the skin tones, and some of the white showing through with the darks. And I kind of felt like the pirate costumes that my subjects were wearing lent themselves to kind of fall in line with this same sort of feeling and color palette, color harmony that I see here. This was another one. I liked this pose, but it wasn't really ideal. We did try that in the photo shoot, but I ended up with this other pose on the floor to get more of that feel of that last portrait that we used, that reference. This was another one that I liked. Also, I love the neutral background and everything here, but I felt like his light shirt just kind of made him the star of the show there. This was another pose and composition that I thought might be nice. And again, this is that same room. I forget who the photographer was. It's pretty well known. I think he shoots for, I don't know if it's a man or woman, shoots for Vogue and other really popular magazines type things. But as you can see, a lot of these subjects are famous actors and people that are in the public eye. But I love this background, and it is definitely one that I will be using more often than not. Okay, let me recap this process for you. So it started with the initial phone call from the client inquiring about the portrait. Then I collected as much information as possible during the phone call. Then we set a date and a time and a place to have the photo shoot. I let the client know at this time that there will be a 50% non-refundable deposit due at the time of the photo shoot. Then we completed the photo shoot, which included getting the contract signed and collecting the deposit. After the photo shoot, I went back to my studio, loaded all the photos, edited them in Photoshop, and once I landed on that final photo reference, I then saved it as a small JPEG and I emailed it to the client for approval. In that email, I also discussed the finalized size that I wanted to do the portrait in and the orientation of the portrait. I ended up on a square-shaped portrait canvas. I think that the way that the photo ended up being cropped just lended itself towards that square orientation. Sometimes when you're cropping and figuring out the photo, it can help you decide on the orientation of the canvas. In this case, it was square. Once they receive all that information, I tell them that they must email me back with an approval. I receive the approval and then I move on to the underpainting phase. All right, that is where I leave you from part one. You now understand what happens in the beginning stages of setting up the acceptance of the job to do the portrait in the first place and everything that entails with that. Now we are ready to move to part two, where I will show you brushstroke by brushstroke my underpainting process. All right, see you in the next one.